Hey everybody, my name is Melissa Adrian and I am a certified personal trainer and a certified nutrition coach. I teach some college courses for students that are getting certified as personal trainers. And then primarily what I do now is weight loss coaching for women. I have an online program, so I do some group programs and some one-on-one coaching, primarily for women who are kind of sick and tired of the diet mentality. They maybe tried everything and it either just didn't work or it worked, but they weren't able to sustain it because it just felt kind of extreme, and who are looking for a different approach to all of this. So we really kind of get to the heart of the matter and we really explore what is really happening from a physiological standpoint and how to change that. And then we also tackle that mental and emotional component of weight loss, which is so important. So what I want to go through with you today is the part one of that, which is the physiological approach. The way that I teach it is we really look at how the foods affect our hormones. And when we understand that, we can understand how to start to kind of re-regulate our hormones, and that makes weight loss so much easier. So if you've always just been taught, like, you know, eat less, move more, and that hasn't worked for you, or it just hasn't felt sustainable, I think what I'm going to show you today and share with you will be a different approach that just makes a lot of sense. And I have seen huge success with my clients when they've started to adopt this. And what's so great is they've felt like it's really doable. Like it's not this extreme thing. They're not suffering through it. It's something that they can do. And once they understand it, they can really do it for the rest of their life. So that's what I'm going to share with you today. This is from a webinar that I did, and I just pulled from the first section. So I'm going to go ahead and share this with you. So I call this the missing link because, again, I think so many people are very interested in weight loss, but just feel like there's something missing. They don't really know what they're supposed to be doing, or, you know, there's so many options out there, or they just feel like, again, they haven't been successful. And so as I was training people, I mean, I've been in this industry now for 15 years and I've trained many, many people and coached many people. I always felt like, you know, I can kind of give them a lot of information, but that doesn't seem to be enough. And I can see that in my own life, like just having information on something isn't enough. So like, what is that missing link? And that's really what I've been exploring in my career for my clients. And I really feel like I have found that, and I've seen the evidence of that with my clients. So let's talk about that. My goal with anybody that I work with is I know there's a lot of overwhelm, especially if you're just getting started on your journey, because it feels like, again, there's so many options. Like, which diet am I supposed to do? What's the newest trend? What foods am I supposed to eat? What am I not supposed to eat? And so there's just a lot of overwhelm. And of course, overwhelm actually doesn't help us take action. Overwhelm keeps us stuck. So we want to eliminate that. Also, I think just the knowledge of really understanding the root causes of weight gain, and then, of course, reversing that, and, you know, how do we really lose weight and how can that be sustainable? And then just give you some action steps that you can start to implement immediately, okay? So really quick, as I mentioned, I have been in this industry for about 15 years. I'm a certified personal trainer. I'm a certified nutrition coach. And again, I teach some online courses like fitness assessment and program design and nutrition for fitness and training through a couple different colleges actually now for students that are going to be certified. So again, I've been doing this for a long time. And, you know, when I started off 15 years ago, my philosophies were much different. And as I've worked with so many people and as I've experienced life myself, as I've gone from being single and having lots of time to go to the gym and, you know, eat whatever, now, you know, as someone that's married and has kids, you know, it's a different approach. And so really looking at that big picture, and, you know, my curiosity is around my degree is in psychology. So I have this interest about human behavior and can we really change? Which I think the answer to that is absolutely. But I think a lot of the ways that we are taught to change doesn't really work for most people, right? It often sets people up for failure. It's this sort of like no excuses. I call it the gold star system, right? So just be good. You know, do the right thing. And if you don't, then you're left feeling like there's something wrong with you, that you're lacking willpower, you're lacking discipline. So I talk about this kind of two bad options for a lot of my clients when they come to me. They're very nervous because they feel like they're sort of ping-ponging back and forth between these two kind of extremes. So one is like, I'm going to be good and I'm going to eat the right things, I'm going to lose weight, but I'm kind of constantly in this state of like deprivation and kind of white knuckling. And so that kind of feels miserable. But then I feel like the only other option is kind of complete indulgence, and then I don't feel good because I'm gaining weight and, I'm tired and I'm having health issues. And so they're kind of ping-ponging back and forth. They start to feel so miserable here, then they ping-pong back over to this sort of extreme, like I'm going to be good. And that starts to feel miserable, and they ping-pong back over here. And so most of us feel like these are kind of our two options, and they're both kind of terrible. So one of the things that I try to teach is that there really is this third option. There's a way to do this where we can feel great both mentally and physically, and it can totally be sustainable. It can be a lifestyle change that really does feel good, and we're not in a state of like deprivation and white knuckling and I'm just trying to be good, but we're not also in this state where we feel sort of out of control with food and we feel like we're just in this indulgence, but then we physically feel bad. So there really, really is, I promise you, another way to do this that really does work. So one of the things is that sometimes you can kind of know the how, and you can want to change, right? So you're like, oh, I know what I should do. I know what I should eat or not eat. I know I should go to the gym more. I really want to do it. And yet we don't do it. And so that really brings up this curiosity, right? If we know that something would be good and we'd feel good doing it, we kind of think we know the how, but we're not doing it. What again is that underlying thing that's not propelling us forward? And again, that's really what I get into with my coaching, okay? My goal is to create a program different because I don't want my clients coming in and just having another thing that they failed at, right? Just having another thing on the, I would call it here, the notch in the things I failed at headboard, right? Because what happens is people come into a program and they feel like they're not able to be successful. They either really blame themselves, and it becomes another thing that they point to as their inability to be successful, or they blame the program. And often it's not necessarily either of those things. And so it's just, again, taking a different approach and looking at this a little bit differently. Okay, so let's talk about what exactly is the missing link. So let's just kind of break this down. If you are somebody that is looking to lose weight, we got to first ask the question, what causes weight gain? And you might be like, well, I know what that is. I'm eating too much, right? But that's really, if we just take all the drama out of it and we just look at it like from a scientific standpoint, weight gain is caused by just giving our body more fuel than it can burn up. And so then it's going to store that fuel for later, right? And what's happening in that process, as you're going to see here, is that some of our hormones are then kind of getting out of whack because our body is really set up to be able to go through periods where we are storing some fat. If you think about back to like back in our ancestor days when you couldn't just open up the fridge and pull out food or get food anywhere you go, right? There would be times of feast and famine pretty much, right? So during those times of feast, our body would take in some extra energy and store it for those times when food wasn't as readily available. So that's a system our body is very, very good at. The problem is we're living in a time when we're never going through the famine part, right? And I don't necessarily think that that's what we need to go through, but we're kind of constantly going through the feasting part just because of the stuff that's available to us. And then we kind of start this vicious cycle where as we're giving our body all this extra food, it starts to throw the hormones out of whack, and it actually creates this desire for more food, and it increases our hunger levels. And so everything's really out of whack. It's like the signals that are supposed to tell us when to eat, when to stop, when we've had enough are not working properly. And so a lot of times from the physiological standpoint, one of the issues is that people are experiencing a lot of overhunger. Their hunger cues are out of whack. And so it's very, very hard to be able to just suddenly stop eating so much, right? It's not that simple, okay? So again, we're starting with this idea of overeating and again, just simply giving our body more fuel that it can burn, which again, there's sometimes when that's okay, but when it's constantly ongoing, that's when we start to see some issues that emerge. So I think it's really important if you're somebody that's been taught, to count calories or count points and that hasn't worked for you, there's a lot of evidence that that really is not an effective way to lose weight, right? There's a great film called That Sugar Film that talks about you can eat the same amount of calories, but it's what those calories are comprised of that is going to either cause you to gain weight or cause you to lose weight. And that's good news, because what that means is we can eat foods that fill us up, we can feel satiated and still lose weight, or still get to our, our ideal weight and maintain that, and not be going through life feeling like we're starving all the time, right? And in combination with that, as we start to regulate the hormones, our hunger levels are going to drop. And so it's this beautiful thing where we're eating plenty of food, we're feeling satiated, but then we're also not feeling as much hunger. So we're not like suffering through this. And that's really important. I want you to imagine being at your ideal weight and feeling amazing, not feeling all this hunger, not feeling like you're having to eat like a bird, not feeling like, you're going through life like, white knuckling it, that you're just like, yeah, this is easy to do. Of course, if you're not feeling a lot of hunger and you're not feeling a lot of cravings, getting to and maintaining your ideal weight is going to be so much easier. Okay, so that's what we want to get to. So the hormones that I talk about, the really big one right off the bat for most people is going to be insulin. Insulin is a storage hormone. It's released when we eat, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but there's some other hormones that are in play here as well. Leptin and ghrelin, they are our satiety and hunger hormones. So leptin tells us when we are full and we don't, really want to eat anymore, and ghrelin is our hunger hormone. So those can get out of whack depending on what we're eating. There's certain foods that really don't cause leptin to be released, so we can eat all these calories and not feel full. And so then, of course, we have all this extra energy our body has to store. And then the stress hormones play a big role in this. Cortisol, epinephrine, norepinephrine. And when we're in a constant state of stress, which a lot of us are, our body is trying to adapt to that. And that does not set us up usually for weight loss in a really good way in terms of the internal and the physiological. So all of these imbalances can lead to overhunger. And what I want to tell you is, hunger is a good thing. It's just our body's way of requesting energy, and it's what's kept us alive, our ancestors alive, and seeking food. So hunger is good, but a lot of people that are in a state where they are wanting to lose weight are constantly experiencing overhunger. So in other words, they're feeling hunger when they shouldn't be, or they're feeling higher levels of hunger than they should be for what their body actually needs in terms of fuel. And it feels bad and it causes weight gain. So if we can bring hunger down, again, if you think about it, if you're not really that hungry, or if you're not overly hungry, it's going to be a lot easier to not overeat. So that's kind of step one, again, on that physiological side. In step two, which I won't get into today, I talk about how to reduce over-desire, because it's easy to be like, just don't eat the cookies, right? But a lot of times we know that it's not physiological cravings that are, causing us to eat the cookies. It's more mental. So that's kind of a whole nother side that we look at. How do we fix the problem? So in terms of reducing overhunger, again, regulating the hormones. So how do we do that? Well, probably no surprise, one of the things I teach my clients is getting back to eating whole foods and balancing it out with the right type of what we call macronutrients. So that's going to be the right types of carbs, fats, proteins, and eliminating the more processed things, the sugars and the flours, because of how they affect those hormones. So that's going to be the main thing that we look at there. As we do that, as we start to bring those hormone levels down, especially that insulin, what starts to happen is our body is able to start reversing. Instead of constantly needing outside fuel, it's able to turn to its own fuel source, and we call that fat adaptation. It just means that our body is able to start cranking up the factory that helps it burn our stored fat. And this is good for anybody, not even necessarily if you're trying to lose weight. This is something we all want to be in, because in between meals or in between times of eating, when our body's able to burn its own fat for fuel, we're going to feel so much better, because fat's an amazing energy source. And so it can get it from outside sources, or again, it can burn its own stores. And then, of course, managing hunger is another one. So with managing hunger, I'll talk about that in a minute. I use something called the hunger scale to help my clients really kind of figure out where they are. So as I mentioned, insulin is one of the main ones that we look at. And so again, insulin is the storage hormone. So it's released after we eat, specifically to store up extra carbs. which break down to something called glucose in our body. But in that process, it's sort of telling our body, well, we don't need any of this fat either, because fat is also an energy source. So we're not only storing up those extra carbs, but we're also storing up fat. So it's really hard to lose weight when our insulin levels are constantly being released and or high because we're eating often, we're eating too much, or because we are eating the wrong types of things. So our body's kind of constantly in this storage mode, but we're also feeling hungry and we're feeling tired, and it's just sort of a bad cycle, okay? So too much does not allow our body to burn fuel. So again, what we want to try to do is get into the state of fat adaptation. So all that means is that our body is able to turn on that very natural sort of function of being able to turn to its own fat stores, those triglycerides that are stored in our fat cells, as an energy source. So it's kind of like dining in instead of, going through the drive-thru, so to speak. So we have to kind of retrain our body how to do that. My clients can usually tell very quickly when they get into that state, because they'll notice their hunger levels go down, they're starting to lose weight, they feel more energy, a lot of times they feel more mental clarity, they sometimes notice mood changes or that their mood is more stable. So there's a lot of advantages to being able to do this and just kind of getting our body back to that natural state and function of being able to burn its own fat for fuel. And then finally, what I teach my clients is how to manage hunger. So a lot of us have very scary thoughts around hunger, which is normal, right? If we are hungry for too long, it can be a bad thing. But we have a lot of messages around hunger that maybe don't serve us, and feel this need to, eat every time we feel any amount of hunger. And so again, what we can learn how to do is allow our body to feel a little bit of hunger and notice that it's completely okay. And really what we're just doing when we allow our body to experience a little bit of hunger, and it's not a bad thing, again, we're training it how to get back into that fat adapted state, right? Hunger is just really your body being like, hey, I'd prefer for you to feed me. And when we're like, no, I'm not going to feed you right now, then it's kind of being forced to figure something out. And that's when we start to go back to burning fat stores and, of course, getting the benefits from doing that. So by no means do we want to starve ourselves or anything like that, but allowing a little bit of hunger, being able to manage that, understanding what's normal is really, really helpful. So again, I use this thing called the hunger scale. And I teach my clients kind of where to be on here and how to really pay attention to that, so that they're able to manage it. And so where do we want to be when, it's time to eat? And then how much do we eat so that we're staying on a lower number on the hunger scale so that we're satiated, but we're not overly full or giving our body more energy than it can handle. So I put a couple of testimonials here from my program that you can read through. But if you have any questions about this, again, this is kind of part one. And part two, I talk more about how to deal with the mental, emotional piece of this, because again, it's really easy to say don't eat sugar anymore. But most of us understand that there's something more going on than just, that physiological craving for it. So hopefully you found this helpful. If you have any questions, if you'd like more information about this, please feel free to get in touch with me. You can email me here. It's really easy. It's just my name, melissa@melissaadrian.com. You can also schedule a free strategy session with me. So this is my online calendar. If you go there, you can pick a time that works for you. We'll hop on the phone together and just talk about your specific situation and come up with some strategies that might help you moving forward and getting towards your goals. I do also have a 6-week group program that I offer. The next one's going to be in January 2019. So if that's something you're interested in, you can go here. This is the link on my website that will give you more information, and you can put in your name and email if you want to kind of be on the list to get information about that. But I hope you guys found this helpful. Thank you so much for letting me share this with you. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, and I hope to hear from you soon.